Alrighty, hello class, and welcome back to Let's Make Music, the music educational channel where we bring music lessons to you from home. Once again, I'm your instructor, Cody Hanna. I'm a multi-instrumentalist of about 15 years, and I'm also in the process of getting my degree in music education. So, in lesson 2 of our basic music theory, we are going to be talking about scales and keys, and this is tedious but necessary information. So we're going to learn what a scale is. We're going to learn about the different kinds of scales, how we build scales, how we use scales in music. We're also going to learn about keys and what a key is and what a key signature is. We're going to learn scale degrees and about transposition. And we're also going to learn about relative and parallel keys. So what is a scale? In music, a scale is a collection of pitches that are organized around a really important central note called the tonic. So if we're playing something like a C scale, the note C is going to be the most important note of that scale, and that note is our tonic. So if you know the name of a scale, you know the tonic. A B flat scale, the B flat is tonic. An A scale, the A is tonic, and so on. It's usually written in ascending order, if not going up the octave and then back down. And it follows a specific order of whole steps and half steps, or some people call them whole tones and half tones. So here's our scale degree names, and I find that it helps to know them both, the names and the numbers, but I generally, if I'm referring to a note, I'll refer to it by its number rather than its name, just to kind of save some time. But you should know both. So let's start with our first one that we already know. This is our tonic. So this here is a C major scale. And so C is our first note, it's our tonic. Our next note is going to be the supertonic, note 2. Note 3 is going to be our mediant, and in this case it is E. Note 4 is going to be our subdominant, which in this case is F. And number 5 is going to be our dominant, which is going to be a G in this case. And it's really important that the relationship between the tonic and the dominant is pretty much what drives most of Western music. The dominant is the midpoint between the tonic and the octave. So that's where the most tension exists in our scale. That's where the push and the pull aspect of listening to music really comes into play, is with the tonic and the dominant. So the dominant is a really important one to know the name of. Our next note, note 6, is going to be the submediant. Note 7 is in major, it's going to be the leading tone. And we call it the leading tone because it very literally leads our ears back to the tonic. But if we were in minor, we would call that note the subtonic, because minor, and we'll get there in just a second, minor doesn't have the same pull from the 7th note to the octave that major does. So just know that in major keys, we're going to call that our leading tone, but in minor keys, we're going to call that our subtonic. And then finally, we have the upper tonic or the octave, and you'll see that as both 1 and 8, but they're the same essentially. So we're going to start with the major scale. The major scale tends to have a brighter and more happier sounding to it. This is not always the case, but generally when you think of a major scale, you're thinking it just kind of has cultural connotations of being brighter and happier. And the order of whole steps and half steps for the major scale is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So we can start at any pitch we want and build our major scale just knowing that order of whole steps and half steps. I want you to take a look real quickly over at this little diagram here. We have the C major scale on the staff, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. We also have the scale degree numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, or 8, as you'll sometimes see it. But below that, we have something called solfege syllables. And this is more of a vocalist thing, but I think it's important to learn. Solfege syllables are used in learning how to sight sing and how to audiate, which means to be able to hear the notes in your head just by looking at the notes on the page. So these are kind of like scale degrees. So if we think of it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, we can also think of the solfege as do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. I, as an instrumentalist, tend to think a little bit better in numbers and names rather than solfege syllables, but they're a handy tool when you start getting into learning how to sight sing and how to audiate and that kind of thing. Um, it's also important to know that we have, not counting enharmonically equivalent scales, so like we're not going to count E natural and F flat. Um, we have 12 major scales, and that's also true for minor scales. So minor scales tend to have a darker and more sad or angry tone to them. And this is where it gets a little bit complicated because minor scales can be broken up into three little subsections of minor scales, and those are natural, harmonic, and melodic minors. So let's start with natural minor scales. These are kind of the quintessential minor scale that you'll need to know to learn the other ones. So the order of whole steps and half steps goes like this: whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. So we can, the same way we did with our major scale, we can plug any note into the beginning of that and follow that order of whole steps and half steps, and we'll get our natural minor scale. If it helps you to think about it this way, you can also think of it as the major scale with a flatted 3, 6, and 7. So if you look at this diagram over here, this staff, we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, right? But our 3, E, is flatted, our 6, A, is flatted, and our 7th B flat is flatted. So the next kind of minor scale we need to learn about is the harmonic minor scale. And so remember a little earlier we were talking about how the subtonic doesn't have the same pull to the tonic that the leading tone does? Well, the harmonic minor is essentially the answer to that question because it's a natural minor scale essentially, but with a raised seventh. So our subtonic becomes a leading tone again. So if you look over here, you can see C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, same as the natural minor scale. But the seventh is B natural. And it's that raised seventh that's a half step away from C that leads our ears back to that. So we're maintaining that push back to the tonic that is present in major scales, but we're still remaining in a minor key. The only note we're changing is that seventh. So that's great for having the pull back to the tonic, but sometimes when we're playing a harmonic minor scale, that jump from the flat 6 to the sharp 7 can be a little bit jarring and uncomfortable to our ears. It's just not quite seamless. So what some people will do when they're writing is use the melodic minor scale instead. And this is just a natural minor with a raised 6 and 7. But, and this is a big but, the melodic minor scale is weird in that it is different when you play it going up the scale than going down the scale. So when we're going up the scale, as you can see here, we have C, D, E flat, F, G, A natural, B natural, raised 6th and raised 7th, and then C. If we were going down the melodic minor scale, we're going to flat these two notes back down. So it would just be like playing back down the natural minor scale on the way down. So that's an important thing to know, but generally if you're playing a melodic minor scale, just know raised 6, raised 7th. So how do we use scales in music? Scales are the skeleton of basically every Western musical composition that we'll play. Um, Music, when we read it, is typically written in what's called a key. And a key tells us what scale that piece of music is based around, because we'll generally use those notes of that scale as a guideline for most of the melodic and harmonic motion in that piece. Um, and we can tell what that key is by a musical symbol called a key signature. And so if you take a look over here, um, this first one we have here is we have a flat key signature, and then down here we have a sharp key signature. So what we can do to read these and let us know what scale our music is based around is look at where these accidentals are placed on the staff. So in this first one, we have a flat on the B line of the treble clef staff and a flat on an E line, the E space of the treble clef staff. So we know that we're going to be flatting the B flat and the E flat. And the only major scale that we have that has those two flat notes and only those two flat notes is the B flat major scale. So that's how we basically read these key signatures. And it's the same thing for sharps. You know, you would tell yourself, you know, what key signature or what scale has 4 sharps in it. And that's, you know, a roundabout way of doing it. There is an easier trick to it that I'll actually let you guys know. So for B flat, let's take this key signature here, right? What you can do to basically immediately tell what your key signature is for flat key signatures, all you have to do is pretend like this note isn't here. The second to last accidental in your key signature in flat key signatures will tell you what key you're in. So like we have B flat and E flat here. E flat is the last one, so we ignore that, pretend it doesn't exist, and then look at this key and we are in B flat. And you can do the same thing with sharp key signatures where you find the last accidental in your sharp key signature. So in this case, it is D sharp, and you can raise that by a half step up to E, and that will be your key signature. That's the scale that you're using. So fun, neat little trick that I wish I was taught a little bit earlier in my musical career. But that's a super helpful trick to learning your key signatures. All right, transposition. So transposing a piece of music means we're taking it from one key that it's originally written in and we're moving it to a different key. And we do that by replacing the tonic of that key with the tonic of another key. So if I had a melody line in C major that went C, D, E, if I wanted to transpose that to G major, all I'd have to do is replace C with G and then move by the same number of steps. So in that case, C to D to E is all whole steps. G up a whole step is A, up another whole step is B. And that's a transposed melody. It's really that easy. So now we get to talk about parallel and relative keys, and I mixed these up for a long time in my own musical learning journey. So definitely make sure you know the difference between these two. So parallel keys are 2 keys with the same tonic note. They can have different key signatures, but they have the same starting central important note that they base themselves off. Relative keys are 2 keys with the same key signature, but different tonics. And let me show you some examples here. So C major and C minor share the same tonic note, C. So they would be parallel keys. They have different key signatures, but they have the same tonic. E flat major, which has 3 flats in the key signature, and C minor, which also has 3 flats in the key signature, are relative keys. So they have the same key signature, but they are relatives. So if you hear somebody ask you to play, play that in the relative minor, you know that it's the minor key that shares the same key signature. And that brings us to the end of our lesson. I hope you guys learned all about scales and keys. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, like, comment, and subscribe for more music lessons, and keep learning, keep practicing, and let's make music. Have a good one.